Breann McGregor. I was going to say, so tell me about what happened with, so I'm going to add this part, with your speeches that you had to do last year that were postponed. How are they coming about in 2021? Are you going to do them? Are you doing them virtually? How is that?
Yeah. So I had to adapt some and create more of a virtual program as an option for people that wanted to have me speak. So the end of March, I'll speak at the Kansas Governor's Mental Health Conference, and I'm a keynote speaker, but it's going to be done virtually. And so I'm doing more events virtually.
And where can they find you if they wanted to? If they want to follow you in your path and listen.
If anyone's listening and they're interested, if you want to check out my website is valueup.org. You can actually, if you want, you can personally email me. My email address is craig@value-up.org. But if you know of a school, if you're a student and you're listening and you want this at your school, tell your principal about Value Up. Tell them about me, Craig Scott. Principals and superintendents have told me on a consistent basis that my program is the most powerful program they've ever seen, and it impacts their entire school culture. I've had principals literally tell me our school is, a year after I spoke there, was different that school year because of you, because of the message that people embraced. And I do a lot more than just do assemblies. I do student trainings. I start a club at schools. I have a curriculum, mental health curriculum. I have a teacher training, and I do a community event. And I usually do local media. So I do a lot when I go into a town. So if anybody's interested, valueup.org.
And they'll be able to find your information at the end of this video as well. I will include your link and your email.
I'd like to say one thing about COVID, and I want to make an analogy here. So do you remember on the news when for a couple of years it seemed like the news was constantly focused on constantly talking about school shootings? It seemed like every other day or a few days there was another school shooting. And for at least a year, maybe two, it was just always on the news. Well, the statistic of someone ever dying in a school shooting is 0.000035. It's very, very, very small. In fact, mathematically speaking, someone is 10,000 times more likely to die in a car accident on their way to school than from a school shooting. But because the news media was talking about it all the time, every school that I went to all across the country, I would have dozens of students, teachers, and parents that were really afraid a school shooting was going to happen at their school. And I had, there were parents that held their kids from going back. There were kids that would skip school sometimes. And the truth was, this was a unrealistic fear. This was, if we were to fear every possible chance of anything bad happening, we would never leave our room. Wow. Again, mathematically speaking, they should be 10,000 times more scared to just get in the car, which none of them were scared to get in the car, and they shouldn't be. So when I saw back in early...
I just want to stop you right there. Oh my God. I'm
just one second. Let me finish this thought. So back in early 2020, when I saw on the media, both sides politically, I looked on CNN.com and I looked at Fox.com and FoxNews.com, and I saw every single article was COVID, 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 COVID. I knew right then that this thing, COVID, would have way more power than it deserved. I knew that this was going to do, the news constantly talking about it was going to do way more damage than whatever this virus is. Now you fast forward to the end of 2020 and we're in 2021, and it has. If people don't know it, the shutdown has already killed way more people than the virus itself. If you just look at one factor, and there's hundreds of them, one factor of the number of starvation deaths that happen every year in our world is around 10 million people die of starvation every year, according to World Food Programs. Well, those same programs have said that number has been doubled, more than doubled, because of the shutdown, because of the economic impact. So that's why I really was not into this shutdown mentality. When people were saying stay home and they were shutting down businesses, I was saying the complete opposite. I was saying that's not saving lives. In fact, we're doing the opposite by shutting ourselves down. Now, just to end, and then I want to hear. So I really saw that this thing, COVID, had way too much. And to me, COVID is the most blown out of proportion thing in world history. Is it bad? Have people lost their lives? Yes, but it is not even in the top 100 worst killers in our world. And if we treated logically the same way we treat other risks in our lives, the way we've treated COVID, we would never do anything. We would never leave our rooms. And so I have really been shocked to see how the world has responded to this. And to me, I don't think we had a good response at all. I think we should have been careful with the vulnerable and elderly, but I do not think you should treat the mass population like they're sick and shut everything down. And starvation is just one factor. You start talking about suicides and abuse and depression and people's lives being totally negatively impacted and businesses being shut down and losing life savings and everything they've worked for. And you're like, well, yeah, but you can get those things back. Those are just things. Well, you don't understand that when a company or a business gets shut down, think about, for me personally, I had 5 children in Africa and around actually different third world countries that I sponsored financially through a program. After I lost all my events, I couldn't sponsor any of them. Now that's just me as one individual, and I'm not this super wealthy guy. Now you think about companies and billion-dollar companies and million-dollar companies that once they're impacted, the first thing that they have to cut is anything charitable. So now you have, so much more death and destruction. So that's my 2 cents on COVID, my experience with the news media, the powerhouse that they can be. And it comes back to the principle that what you place attention on, you give power to. And when we collectively, as a world, give attention to something like COVID and base all of our life decisions upon it, we've given this thing way too much undeserved power.
That is so true. Oh my God. Wow. Yeah. I was going to say, I've left the house maybe like 20 times in the last year. So when you said, wow, like you'd never leave your room. I don't leave my room. I don't leave it. I coexist with my husband. Like I've fallen for the media got me, and I'm like realizing it when you said it. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, they've gotten a lot of people. Breann, and I would just challenge you.
Oh my God.
To really.
Because it is so real. I mean, I'm doing this project because I want structure in my life. Meanwhile, I'm like, it is so true that you.
I would almost challenge you this, and I would challenge anybody listening. Unless you have some medical reason specific towards you, but if you are a relatively healthy person, I would say live your life like COVID doesn't exist. And I'm not saying that because I want you to be ignorant. I'm saying that because if you do that, you're going to help put it in balance, because guess what? It's going to be thrown in your face all the time anyway. It's going to be anytime you turn on the news, anytime you go to social media, when you walk outside and you see everybody wearing a mask. I think that
I don't know what it
you
looks
have
like to
to,
go into a store because I haven't been to one. I
yeah.
have. I,
And there's people that are completely paralyzed with fear because of this. And my suggestion is, take your power back, that it is not as bad as the media makes it out to be. And it really has grown into a monster that it isn't.
I feel.
And
I
there,
do feel so empowered just by having you like say what you said, because it's the
can I tell you
statistic.
a story?
I'm
There's a
sorry.
story about during World War II,
Mhm.
when London was being bombed by Nazi planes. And Winston Churchill really inspired courage in his whole country with his great speeches. But there's actually stories, true stories, of people that when there were bombs falling on London, literally bombs that they could hear and feel, people were still getting up, getting dressed, and going to work, because they had built this spirit, this attitude that they were not going to live in fear. And guess what? It was because of people like Winston Churchill and the spirit that we beat the Nazis. And so we, that's an actual killing thing. Now you have a thing where the actual killing rate is point zero something. I don't know. I don't pay attention anymore, because to me, I just don't want to give it my time anymore. And I did
I
for a
agree
while.
with you. I agree.
And
I'm guilty of doing it, and I'm telling
so
you,
we
it is
really need we need an injection. Our country, our world needs an injection of courage, and
absolutely.
saying, you know what? Okay, we got this invisible thing, like 100 other invisible killers out there. But I'm gonna, if if I'm vulnerable, you should be careful. But otherwise, I wouldn't buy into, to me, the false narrative that the national and world media is telling. It's just like Columbine in a sense. The whole
It-
story after Columbine was, hey, these guys who are bullied so bad went to get revenge. And then they've done so many deeper studies, and they realized that wasn't really what was going on. And now you have all these people all over the country, when the news media was focused on it,
idolizing them.
scared of school shootings. And I survived a school shooting, and I was saying, don't be scared of them. It's if you're going to
You're
be
giving them
scared of that,
power.
if you're going to be scared of that, then you've got to be scared of everything. You got to be scared if you want to logically be scared of a school shooting. And I would say the same thing of COVID. If you want to logically be scared, if you're living right now and you're listening to this and you are afraid, living in fear, you are constantly avoiding people because you think that's the answer, I want to tell you that if you're going to do that, then logically speaking, you should never leave your room ever. And even before COVID, you should have never left your room. And that's a terrible, terrible way to live. And you shouldn't do that. And you shouldn't live in fear. And you shouldn't give this thing the power that the news media and the world media has given it. It doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, I can say that since this happened, or since COVID was brought forward, I haven't left, and we didn't drive back home. We stayed put because of the different state lines closing off or whatnot. And then with no jobs, especially in the music entertainment business, festivals, everything coming to a halt, it made complete sense to just stay put where we were at, which is my mom's. And so I'm grateful and for the roof and for having a place to stay. However, it did do a whole lot to my life back home. I mean, I up and traveled to visit family, and the next thing you know, I'm like a vacation turned staycation, and this is my late grandma's house, so this bed is over. This is like
honestly, if I were you, I would get back to living your life the way you lived it before, and really, you're healthy. You're not a high risk, and I would say that to anybody. And other people might choose to live their life differently, but I've traveled already all over the country since COVID. I've been on planes, I've been on trains,
it doesn't scare you to
it doesn't scare me at all. And you know, you could say, well, you know, you're young and healthy, but honestly, even if I was older, there's just so many things out there that could possibly happen. I don't pay attention to the 0.0%, 0.0 something percents. I don't. If I have a legitimate reason to be concerned with it, then I will. But otherwise, that's not going to come into my decision making.
Wow.
And it's sad that it's ruling people's lives. Not only are they not just doing
you're
like
so
one thing, you know, they're not only wearing a mask, it's constantly on people's minds, rhetoric, conversation, and it's like you need, that's something that just has too much time and attention, and it's
yeah.
dominating people's thought
I
space and heads. It doesn't deserve it. It doesn't. If this were the actual death, the bubonic plague, and was killing people left and right, I might be talking a little different. It's not. I've known 50 plus people that have had it. Not a single one of them have died. I've only had 2 friends who told me it was really, really, really bad. Most of them, they say it was like the flu. I've had a couple friends say it was barely nothing. So it's just the flu. It's not, it's just, you know, if it had,
I guess like politics, the election coming up, this is all part of an agenda or a bigger something big, I guess, to get us to not pay attention to what's going on.
There's a lot of there's a lot of theory. There's a lot of talk about, you know, why it could be being blown up out of proportion, and how, and I'm sure people are using it. I'm sure it's been used politically. I've just decided for myself, this is not something for me to really be concerned about. I would rather spend my time being concerned about how am I going to live my purpose and make a difference in the world, which is what I'm built to do. And that's what I spend my time doing and thinking on. And, you know, if it's something that becomes more serious in my life, then I'll take it more seriously. But until then, I'm not going to worry about the 0.00 somethings. I never have, I never will. I'm going to be smarter than that.
Well, I'm gonna this is my promise to you, and we're gonna have to do a follow-up for sure to make sure that I've followed through with this. But I'm gonna make it a point to leave this room and to go outside, to walk out the front door, and go, and not have these talks of, well, what about this or what about that? And I mean, because that's a vicious. I'm aware of what's going on, like with my thoughts, and I'm aware of this vicious cycle. But
do it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I am. And
go enjoy the beauty, be outside, be in the present. You know,
I mean, I've been present with with my mom and my husband back home, and, and through interviews. But
you know, recognize that, hey, I've been living in and we talked about state of being. I've been living in a state of fear and anxiety and restriction, and I don't think I want 2021 to be that way. And I don't have to have it be that way. In fact, I can have it just be just as freeing as 2019 and 18 if I want it to be. And it can be.
Yeah.
And so in some way, you know, COVID affected me not in the sense so much that I stopped living my life normally. The world, a lot of the world did, which impacted me. And they shut down events, and they, you know, but I didn't. If somebody wanted to meet, I already understood the news media, and I already understood that this thing would have way too much undeserved power. So get out there and
I am.
experience life and
Well,
leave 2020 where it belongs in the
yeah,
past.
I am. I am. You know, I there's so much to take away from this. So I thank you for that.